You are about to enter the world of a Roman legionary, a man who fights for Rome's honor and glory under the direct orders of Caesar Augustus. But this story doesn't revolve around his heroic battles or famous victories. Instead, it will focus on his everyday life, his routines, and the small details that make up his existence. His existence as a soldier of Rome. The year is 23 BC, and the location, the Via Flaminia, a major Roman road connecting Rome to other parts of the empire. Our legionary, like many others, has just returned from a long campaign in Germania, a province known for its dense forests and fierce tribes. They have come back victorious, having secured the borders of the empire against barbarian invasions. But the celebrations have ended, and now the real test begins, the return to daily life. It is a chilly autumn evening, and the wind carries the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain. Our legionary, along with hundreds of his comrades, marches forward in silence. Their steps echo the somber mood. There is no music, no laughter, only the crunch of gravel underfoot and the distant clank of armor. They have been marching for days, and their faces, etched with fatigue, tell tales of long hours spent on the road. As the sky deepens into twilight, they stop. It is time to make camp. The soldiers swiftly set to work, guided by muscle memory, honed over years of disciplined service. Tents are unrolled, supplies are checked, and a perimeter is quickly established. There is a grim efficiency in their movements, born from the shared understanding of danger that comes with living on the edge of civilization. The flickering lamplight, officers confer in hushed tones, their voices barely carrying over the crackling of fires. The air is thick with wood smoke and the smell of roasting meat. A young recruit watches intently, eager to learn, to prove himself. He stirs the fire with a wooden stick, sending sparks spiraling into the gathering darkness. In this moment, he is not just a nameless recruit, but a keen observer of life on the edge of Rome's dominion. Their task is simple: stand guard and protect the unsuspecting citizens of Mediolanum from threats both visible and invisible. And yet, as the moon climbs higher in the sky, bathing the camp in its silvery light, he cannot shake off a sense of foreboding. In the rustling of leaves, he hears the whisper of approaching danger. In the shadows cast by the tents, he sees the lurking forms of potential enemies. His hand instinctively tightens around his spear, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the flickering range of the campfires. Is it merely the unease of a novice, or can he sense a storm gathering on the horizon? He remembers the stories told by veteran soldiers around the campfire, tales of barbarian raids, and the ever-present threat of wild beasts that prowl the fringes of civilization. As the night deepens, the young recruit's vigilance grows. He stands shoulder to shoulder with men who have faced countless dangers, their silent camaraderie a testament to the bonds forged in the crucible of experience. They watch, they wait, their faces grim, determined, and in the heart of the recruit, fear gives way to resolve. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of Mediolanum, Cornelia prepares for her evening's entertainment. Her home, a sprawling villa on the outskirts of town, is a sanctuary of luxury and leisure. With marble floors polished to mirror-like smoothness and walls adorned with frescoes depicting scenes from Roman mythology, it is a testament to Cornelia's elevated social status. She reclines on a silk cushion, a goblet of Falernian wine, one of Rome's finest vintages, in her hand. She idly swirls the deep red liquid, its complex aroma filling her senses. Outside, the sounds of the night mingle with the soft murmur of conversation. Crickets chirp, the wind rustles through the leaves of ancient trees, and within the villa, slaves move silently, anticipating Cornelia's every whim. A slave enters, bearing a silver platter piled high with figs, dates, and grapes. Cornelia pauses in her conversation, her gaze lingering on the bountiful spread before her. With a delicate hand, she reaches out, plucking a plump fig from the platter and bringing it to her lips. The sweet, earthy flavor explodes on her tongue, a welcome contrast to the dryness of the wine. She savors the moment, lost in the simple pleasure of the fig's juiciness. As the night deepens, the conversation turns to the recent victory against the Germanic tribes. Cornelia listens with polite attention, her mind wandering at times to more frivolous matters, such as the latest fashions from Rome or the scandalous affair of a senator's wife. Her guests, a mix of local elites and Roman officials, speak in hushed tones of strategy and tactics, their words carefully chosen to avoid any hint of boasting or arrogance. After all, it was not they who had fought, bled, and died on the battlefields of Germania. They were merely the patrons, the supporters, the beneficiaries of the legion's hard-won victories. Suddenly, a loud crash from outside the villa shatters the tranquility of the evening. Cornelia startles, her hand flying to her chest. For a moment, an eerie silence descends, broken only by the frantic chirping of a nightingale. Then, as if awakening from a dream, her composure returns. With a graceful sweep of her hand, she dismisses the guests. "Go on, my friends," she says, her voice betraying none of the fear that flickers within. "Enjoy the rest of your evening. The night is young." As the door closes behind her last guest, Cornelia is left alone in the opulent silence of her villa. The crash from earlier echoes in her ears, a discordant note in the symphony of the night. She rises from her seat, determination hardening her features. She will get to the bottom of this disturbance no matter the cost. Outside, the young recruit exchanges a worried glance with his fellow soldiers. The storm he sensed earlier is now upon them. With heavy steps and guttural shouts, a group of men armed with crude weapons burst through the flimsy barriers of the camp. The soldiers sprang into action, their years of training taking over. Spears are poised, swords are drawn, and battle cries ring out in the night. In the ensuing chaos, the young recruit finds himself face to face with an intruder. Adrenaline surges through him, lending strength to his shaking limbs. He thrusts his spear forward, catching his opponent off guard. The weapon finds its mark, sending the attacker crashing to the ground. Dazed but still breathing, the recruit hesitates for a moment, the weight of what he has done dawning on him. But there is no time for remorse. From the corner of his eye, he sees another attacker charging towards him, and he knows he must be ready for the next fight. With the sun's return, the extent of the damage becomes clear. Several legionaries bear wounds, some minor, some serious, but none life-threatening. On the ground, 2 intruders lie still, victims of the legionaries' well-aimed weapons. Among the injured, a young legionary stands out, his arm hanging awkwardly at his side, a bandage crudely applied to stem the flow of blood. Nearby, a medic, his face creased with concern, examines the wound. The calm after the storm settles over the camp. The legionaries, their faces grim, begin the grim task of burying the dead. In the midst of this somber ritual, the centurion addresses his men, his voice echoing the gravity of their situation. "We are not just soldiers," he says, his gaze sweeping over the assembled troops. "We are the bulwarks of Rome's security, the shield that protects the very heart of our civilization." But even as the soldiers prepare to move on, a shadow of doubt lingers in the centurion's eyes. He knows that this attack was not a random act of violence. It was a warning, a harbinger of greater challenges that lie ahead. As the Romans prepare to bury the dead and tend to the wounded, the haunting specter of unrest among the conquered tribes of Germania looms large in their thoughts. They are, after all, standing on the very edge of the known world, where the untamed wilderness of Germania gives way to the sophisticated streets of Mediolanum. But the spirit of the legion, though tempered by loss, remains unbroken. They will move forward, ever vigilant, ever ready to defend the fragile flame of civilization against the encroaching darkness. For these men are more than just soldiers. They're the silent guardians of Rome, the unseen defenders of a world that sleeps soundly under the watchful gaze of the eagle. The story of the Roman legionary isn't just one of battles and conquests. It's a story of endurance, of courage in the face of adversity, and of the quiet heroism that defines those who stand on the front lines of civilization. These are the men who, while not celebrated in the forums of Rome, are the true backbone of its power. Their story is a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are won not on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments of peace that they buy with their sacrifices. Waking at first light has become your norm. The sounds of the legionary camp, as it stirs slowly, are a familiar lullaby to your ears. The air is always cool, fresh and sweet, tinged with the faint scent of damp earth and wood smoke from the evening before. Around you, men stir and move with a quiet efficiency. No, there is no need for haste, but no man lingers in his tent either. Sleep is a luxury they cannot afford. In this world of endless marches and looming threats, each moment not spent in training or marching is time lost that may never be recovered. You rise from your bedroll, carefully folding it to preserve its shape and ready it for the next night's camp. The ground beneath is still firm from the night's chill. You shiver slightly and pull your cloak tighter about your shoulders. The legionaries around you move through their morning routines with a practiced grace born from years of repetition. The rhythm of their lives is constant, measured, deliberate, and unyielding. Like the sunrise that marks the beginning of each day, so too does it end. Each task performed, each mile marched, each battle fought, each meal shared is a testament to this rhythm. Your fellow legionaries have become attuned to it as instruments in an orchestra, playing their parts until the music of their lives blends seamlessly into the grand symphony of the legion. But amidst this orchestrated existence, there are those who deviate, whose melodies falter or clash discordantly with the rest. And sometimes, just sometimes, the music fades into silence. The leather straps of your armor creak softly as you fasten them. Your fingers work mechanically, their practiced movements betraying the hours spent honing this skill. The metal of your helmet is cold against your fingers, smooth and unyielding, a stark contrast to the warmth of your skin. You hesitate for a moment, considering the weight that will soon settle upon your head. For now, though, it remains an inanimate object, cold and hard and unforgiving. But when worn, it becomes an extension of your resolve, a shield against the chaos that surrounds you. You pull it on, the leather lining, offering a slight reprieve from the metal's chill. The other legionaries around you have donned their helmets, their faces obscured by the cold steel. They stand ready, their armor gleaming in the early morning light. They are not just men in armor, they're instruments of war, finely tuned and prepared to strike a discordant note in any who would challenge the harmony of their legion. You join them, stepping out of the tent and into the nascent daylight. The sky is a canvas of deepening blue, streaked with wisps of white clouds that hold the promise of the day's journey. Ahead of you, the road stretches like a thread, weaving through the landscape toward the unknown horizon. The march began. The legionaries fell into their accustomed rhythm, their footsteps a steady beat upon the dusty road. You fall into step alongside your comrades, your pack heavy on your back. Not impossibly so, but enough to press into your shoulders, to shape your posture. You adjust it slightly, feeling the weight settle into place. It is not a burden, not today. It is simply a part of the melody you are playing, a counterpoint to the steady drum of marching feet. Inside the pack, the contents shift slightly, their jangle a counterpoint to the silence of the march. You do not spare much thought to what lies within, for you have hefted this load countless times before. You know the feel of the cloak against your back, the small cooking pot nestled beside it, the bit of grain in the whetstone. Each item has its place, chosen not for extravagance or comfort, but for necessity. A soldier's life is a Spartan one, devoid of luxuries, yet filled with the tools of their trade. These items are not just possessions, they are extensions of their duty, their loyalty, their very survival. Amongst these humble tools, there are a few tokens, mementos of a life before the legion, before duty consumed every waking moment. Chipped marble, a faded piece of cloth, a ring of twisted metal. These are not merely souvenirs, they are anchors to the past, reminders of loved ones, of places, of moments when life held possibilities beyond the endless road. You continue your march, lost in the rhythm of it all, the dust rising around you, the heat of the sun beating down. But even as the road stretches endlessly before you, the sky seems to mock you with its boundless blue, you find solace in this monotony. For here, amidst the dust and the heat, you are not just a nameless face in a sea of soldiers. You are a note in the grand symphony of the legion, playing your part in a composition that echoes across the ages. In the lull of the march, thoughts drift to the centurion. He stands apart, his presence commanding respect and obedience. His armor is polished, his movements precise, a testament to years of service and countless battles fought. His face, etched with the hardships of his profession, is a map of the roads he has traveled, the victories he has earned, the defeats he has endured. His voice cuts through the ranks sharp and clear, issuing commands that are obeyed without question. Under his gaze, men move with precision, their steps in unison, their movements in sync. He is the embodiment of discipline, of unwavering resolve, a bulwark against the chaos that surrounds them.
And yet,
There is more to him than meets the eye. In quieter moments, when the camp is still and the day's march is done, he sheds the mantle of authority. The harsh edges soften, replaced by the weariness of one who has shouldered burdens greater than his own. In these moments, he is not just a centurion, he is a man, grappling with the weight of responsibility. The toll of sacrifice, the ache of memories best left buried. He sits apart from the others, his presence a calming influence amidst the boisterous camaraderie. His eyes, though, hold a distant look, as if the battles he has fought are not just in the past, but echoing in the chambers of his heart. When he speaks, his voice is softer now, his words measured, carrying the weight of experience and the burden of leadership. Under his watchful gaze, the legion moves forward, a well-oiled machine of disciplined men. Each step, each movement is a testament to his training, his guidance, his sacrifice. He is the centurion, the epitome of the legion's ethos, stoic, unwavering, enduring. The day's march is long, the heat relentless. Yet there is no complaint, no faltering, no surrender to the elements. The legionaries press on, their pace unwavering, their purpose resolute. You walk alongside your comrades, the dust rising around you, the sun beating down, but within you, a fire burns, stoked by the centurion's words, fueled by the unspoken bond that unites you with your fellow legionaries. With each step, you are forged anew, tempered by the heat, strengthened by the dust, united by the common purpose that transcends the boundaries of name and rank. This is your life now, a tapestry woven with threads of duty, sacrifice, and brotherhood. You are a legionary, a soldier, a servant of Rome. And as long as the road stretches ahead, as long as the sky offers no respite, you will walk, you will endure, you will conquer. For this is not just a march, it is a testament to the indomitable spirit of the legion. The morning meal is simple, coarse porridge, thick and bland, made from barley or wheat. Sometimes a bit of bread, hard and dry, dipped in water to soften. Occasionally, a strip of dried meat or a handful of olives. The flavors are muted, the textures familiar. It is not a meal to savor, it is a meal to sustain. Oh. You rise before the sun, the chill of dawn lingering in the air. Your breath hangs in the gray light as you pull on your armor, piece by piece, until you are encased in leather and steel. The kit weighs heavy, even in the early hours. Discipline is the watchword of the day. As a new recruit, you fall into step with the others, adjusting to their pace, matching their stride. There are hundreds of feet moving in unison, the sound a soft rhythmic percussion against the dusty road. The centurion at the head of the column raises his spear. In a sharp gesture, he brings it down, and the march begins. The rising sun paints the sky with hues of gold and rose, but you see little of it through the dust kicked up by the marching feet. Still, you can feel its warmth on your face and the knowledge of its presence behind you. The road stretches ahead, straight and unwavering. Roman engineering has ensured that much. No towering trees shade the path, no winding turns challenge the steady pace. Just stones of many sizes, smoothed or sharp, strewn or carefully laid, all under the watchful gaze of the sun. There are moments when you catch sight of the countryside slipping past on either side, fields of grain bending under the wind,
yes,
vineyards climbing the hillside, small towns clinging to the horizon. But for the most part, you keep your eyes on the ground, watching the dust devils dance in the distance, or the pebbles skipping ahead. Of the column, you learn to ignore the prickling of sweat on your skin, the aching in your calves, the burning in your lungs. Each step is a reminder of duty, each mile a testament to endurance. By midday, the sun climbs high, spilling its golden light across the road. It's a solid disk in the sky, offering no respite, demanding full attention. The heat shimmers in waves off the stones, distorting the view, blurring the edges of things. You drink deeply from your canteen, the water cool and sweet on your tongue, but it does little to quench the thirst in your throat. You eat a meager lunch, dried meat and bread, tasteless and tough, but filling. And still, you eat in silence, for even in the smallest details, silence is golden. As the hours pass, the road becomes a relentless companion. its rough surface a constant under your marching feet, its straight path an unyielding guide. The legionaries around you fall into a rhythm, their footsteps drumming out a steady beat on the hot stones. It's a monotonous lullaby, one that speaks of long days and longer nights, of endless roads and distant goals. This is the soundtrack of your existence now, a percussive counterpoint to the sun's unrelenting blaze. The afternoon brings no change. The sun remains a stern taskmaster, the road an unswerving ruler. You keep to your post, your body a well-oiled machine of discipline and duty. Even fatigue has its place in this routine, accepted, endured, but never surrendered to. The very air seems charged with unspoken understanding, a silent contract between man and stone, between flesh and unforgiving dust. The hours slip by like grains of sand, each one leaving its mark on your skin, on your spirit. You're a tiny detail in a vast design, a single note in a symphony of endurance. The road is your canvas, the miles your paint, and every step is a stroke towards the setting sun. As twilight approaches, the sun begins its slow descent, the sky ablaze with hues of orange and red. The light softens, the shadows stretch, and the air cools, bringing a sweet release from the day's relentless heat. You have walked far today, farther than you ever did back home, where the cobblestone streets were smooth and the markets bustled with life. Here the road is a battleground, testing your mettle with every uneven stone. And yet, there's a strange camaraderie in this shared struggle, a silent bond forged in the sweat of your brow and the dust on your shoulders. Night falls quickly, shrouding the countryside in darkness. The air grows still, the sounds of the day fading into a hushed whisper. You find a spot along the road, a place that feels right, despite the rough stones beneath you. Your sleeping companions are the ghosts of countless legionaries who rested here before you, their dreams echoing in the silence of the night. You pull your cloak tight against the evening chill and try to find sleep in the rhythm of your breathing. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the occasional flicker of a distant fire or the pale sliver of a wandering moon. Overhead, the stars seem close enough to touch, their cold light bathing the landscape in an ethereal glow. In the flickering light of the campfire, faces come alive, etched with dirt and fatigue. But shining with a quiet determination, the simple meal is shared in silence, each bite a testament to the day's labor. The bread is hard, the stew thick, but the taste lingers long after the bowl is empty. Around the fire, stories are exchanged, tales of home and hearth, of battles fought and victories won. Laughter echoes, momentarily chasing away the shadows of the day. For a brief moment, you are not just a nameless recruit, but a son, a brother, a friend. The night watches are long, filled with the restless energy of those who wait. The hours crawl by, punctuated only by the crackle of the fire and the murmur of voices. You stand guard, your spear held firm, your eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. The night is alive with unseen presences, rustling leaves and hooting owls, the distant howl of wolves. Every shadow seems to hold a threat, every whisper a surprise. You do not flinch, do not falter.
Ow.
You are the bulwark against the darkness, the shield that guards the sleeping legionaries. As the first hint of dawn creeps over the horizon, the night's grip begins to loosen. The darkness recedes, revealing the familiar faces of your comrades etched with the weariness of the long watch. The fire sputters, giving way to the soft glow of the rising sun. The sky is a canvas of colors, brushing away the darkness of the night, heralding a new day, a new march. The legionary's life is one of repetition. March, rest, drill, eat, sleep. The days blur not in chaos but in routine. Training is constant, not dramatic, but demanding. You practice formations, shield maneuvers, sword strokes, again and again. The instructors do not shout, they correct with quiet firmness. The goal is not excitement, but precision. The food is simple, nourishing, plain. You eat when the call is given, what is provided, nothing more. There is no indulgence here, only sustenance. The taste of home lingers in memory, a faded echo of flavors past. Here the palate is disciplined, the stomach made strong. Discipline is the cornerstone of a legionary's existence. From the precise angle of your shield to the number of steps in your stride, everything is measured. Everything is honed. There is no room for error, no tolerance for weakness. In this crucible of routine, your body and spirit are tempered, turned, tested. At times, doubt creeps in, whispering tales of home, of warm hearths, and loved ones far away. But you push it aside. A legionary does not falter. A legionary does not retreat. A legionary endures. The road is your constant companion, the dust your faithful shadow. You walk, you march, you conquer. The rhythm of the road is the rhythm of your life. It's the dust on your shoulders, a badge of honor, a testament to your journey. With every step, you leave a part of yourself on the road, a legionary forged in discipline, tempered in hardship, ready for whatever the road may bring. The map of the Gallic Wars is littered with the names of defeated tribes, those of Arverni, the Helvetii, the Sequani, Bellovaci, Carnets, Suva. Yet there is one name among these that stands out like a sore thumb: the Aedui. Of all the Gallic tribes that Rome had to face, they were perhaps the most Roman. In fact, their king was named Amicius, which translates to friend of Rome. He held the title of Augustus among his people, just like Caesar. And he also happened to be the father of the famous Queen Boudica, the lady who would lead the famous revolt against Rome in Britain. But why? Why did this Celtic tribe in central Gaul share so many things with Rome, right down to the title of Augustus? Let's find out. This is the story of Amidio and the Aedui. Rome first encountered the Aedui in 52 BC, when Julius Caesar was engaged in a desperate fight against the Helvetia in northern Italy. As Caesar marched south to take on the bulk of Vercingetorix's army at Gergovia, he left the camp of his ally, King Aemilius of the Aedui, near the village of Bibracte. What's interesting is that Amadeus had a Roman camp built for himself, complete with tents in the shape of a forum, paved roads, and public buildings. It even had a statue of Caesar. In other words, it was a miniature Rome inside Gaul. But how did this happen? Well, you see, the Aedui were no strangers to Roman influence. In fact, they had been in contact with Rome since the days of the legendary Roman general Lucius Junius Brutus. It's almost 200 years before Caesar's invasion. See, the Aedui had a big problem. Their neighbors, the powerful Helvetii, kept bullying them and encroaching on their territory. So in 110 BC, they asked Rome for help. Rome, always willing to meddle in the affairs of its potential client states, sent Brutus to help the Aedui kick out the Helvetii. Sure enough, Brutus crushed the Helvetii, humiliated their king, and installed Amicius as the new king of the Aedui that made Amicius Rome's client king. However, there's little evidence of the Aedui actually being a Roman client state, because after their victory over the Helvetii, the Aedui spent the next 40 years trading, intermarrying, and generally cozying up to the neighboring tribes, instead of becoming Rome's client state. And then in 52 BC, when Caesar needed to secure his rear while he was campaigning against Vercingetorix, he went to the Aedui and asked for their help. In return, he promised to make them a Roman client state once he was done with Gaul. So that's what Amadeus did. He helped Caesar by providing him with guides, scouts, couriers, and spies. He also provided cavalry troops and foot soldiers, and he even accompanied Caesar to the siege of Avaricum, where he surrendered the city to Caesar. After finishing off Vercingetorix and pacifying Gaul, Caesar did indeed make the Aedui a Roman client state. But he didn't stop there. In a move that has puzzled historians for centuries, Caesar ordered that 2 of the Aedui nobles be made senators, giving them full Roman citizenship and granting them the right to vote in Roman elections and to hold Roman offices. In fact, one of those 2 senators even became consul of Rome for the year 51 BC, making him the first non-Italian ever to hold the highest office in the Roman state. So by the time Boudica's father died around 48 BC, the Aedui were as Roman as you could possibly get, without actually being a Roman. So it is hardly surprising that their customs and titles, and even their names, began to resemble those of Rome. The thing to remember about the Aedui is that they were an ethnic tribe in the modern sense of the word. The term Aedui actually referred to a confederation of smaller tribes in central Gaul, kind of like the Achaean League in Greece. And this confederation was quite unstable. So the kings of the Aedui weren't necessarily the rulers of all the Aedui tribes, only the most powerful ones, and there were 3 of them. There was Commius, who ruled from 110 BC until around 90 BC. Then there was Casticus, who ruled from 90 BC until around 70 BC. And finally, there was Amycus, who ruled from 70 BC until 48 BC. And each of these kings tried to stabilize and expand the kingdom by doing exactly what you'd expect a Roman king to do: issue coinage, build infrastructure, form alliances, and most importantly, keep expanding his territory. In fact, if you look at the coins issued by the three kings, you can actually see how their coinage mirrored Roman coinage. The first king, Commius, issued silver and bronze coins that bore the image of Rome's most famous triad, Venus, Minerva, and Mars, along with the words SPQR. In other words, his coins looked exactly like the denarius and the sestertius issued by Rome itself. The second king, Cassico, continued issuing the same types of coins as Commius, except now he put himself on them. His coins bore the images of both himself and Caesar, with Caesar taking the place of Mars in the triad. So we know that Cassico considered himself Caesar's ally. And the third king, Amycus, stopped minting the silver denarius altogether, opting instead for the bronze quadrans and the semo-quadratus. These were the lowest denominations of Roman currency. And the fact that Amadeus switched to them probably signals the increasing poverty of the Aedui after decades of warfare and exploitation. But what's more interesting is that the obverse of his coins no longer bore any images. Instead, they bore inscriptions such as SC, meaning Senate, and the people of Rome, or LPR, meaning the Roman Senate. The reverse of his coins still bore the image of Caesar, but now it was surrounded by the words Vot, Caesar, Divi Filio, meaning a vow to Caesar, son of the divine Julius. So Amadeus effectively turned his entire coinage system into a glorification of Rome. By the time he was done, the Aedui weren't just allies of Rome, they were honorary Romans. Unfortunately, they wouldn't remain honorary Romans for long. After Caesar's assassination, his adopted son Octavian, better known as Augustus, came to power. And one of his first acts as emperor was to annex the Gallic territories that Caesar had conquered. That included the Aedui, but the good news was that Augustus didn't disturb them. He let them keep their customs and traditions, their language, their local assemblies, and their client kings. In fact, Augustus was quite fond of Amycus. We have evidence that he stayed with the Aedui king during his tour of Gaul in 31 BC, probably enjoying the comforts of the Roman camp once again. That was until Boudicca's revolt broke out in Britain around 60 AD. The historian Suetonius mentions that Augustus was forced to abandon his plans to campaign against Arminius in Germany because of the revolt in Britain, which was probably led by Boudicca, the daughter of Amadeus. And although Augustus eventually crushed the revolt, it seems that he never forgave her father for it. In the end, he deposed Amycus and replaced him with a puppet king of his own choosing. Now, some historians have claimed that this was simply a matter of Augustus tightening his grip on the unruly Gallic tribes. But others argue that Augustus deliberately targeted the Aedui because of their symbolic resemblance to Rome. If that's true, then it means that even the closest of allies couldn't escape Augustus's suspicions. And with that ends our story. Thank you so much for watching. The march of the legionaries echoes into the distance, and with it, we turn our gaze to the man who directed their steps with quiet precision. Julius Caesar. Not merely a name etched into marble or whispered in the Senate, but a strategist whose ambition unfolded not in bursts of glory, but in the slow, deliberate sweep of conquest. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a Roman encampment in Gaul. The air is damp, with the scent of pine and distant rain. The tents are arranged with geometric care, each one a small cell in the vast organism of Caesar's army. Fires crackle softly, their smoke curling upward into the gray sky. There is no chaos here on the order, a quiet, relentless order. Caesar's campaign in Gaul did not begin with a clash of swords. It began with planning. Maps spread across wooden tables, with quiet conversations held in Latin, with the slow accumulation of supplies and alliances. His ambition was not lauded. It was patient. He understood the terrain, the tribes, the politics. He moved not with haste, but with certainty. He had come to this land not as a conqueror, but as an apprentice, learning the lessons of terrain, of people, of war. Studied the Gauls, their strengths, their weaknesses, their alliances, and he played upon them with a mixture of strategy and magnanimity. And Beorix and his Eburones, for instance, skilled horsemen, fierce warriors, yet divided by internal rivalries. Caesar recognized their prowess, but he also saw their fractures. He offered them a choice: become his allies or face his legions. Many chose alliance, drawn to the prospect of greater power under the Roman eagle. Yet even as he extended the olive branch, Caesar's mind was calculating. He knew that some, like the Helvetiae, driven by Vercingetorix, would resist. And so he positioned his forces, prepared his traps. Vercingetorix, a name synonymous with Gallic resistance, led with courage, with a fiery spirit that rallied the Gauls to arms. At the siege of Alesia, Caesar found himself locked in a battle of wills, a test of endurance as much as of arms. Vercingetorix had chosen a strategic stronghold, and Caesar's legions, for all their might, could not storm its ramparts. So Caesar did what he had done so often before. He waited, he observed, he adapted. While Vercingetorix looked for a decisive battle, Caesar built his masterpiece of siegecraft. He built roads, he dug trenches, he constructed towers. And when the time was right, he unleashed the full force of Roman engineering and military might. The siege lasted for months, a testament to both sides' tenacity. But in the end, it was Caesar's meticulous planning, his ability to adapt, that prevailed. Alesia fell, and with it, much of Gallia Comata's resistance crumbled. Yet even in victory, there were whispers of cautionary tales. For Caesar had not just conquered land, he had made enemies. Beporus, a chieftain who had switched sides, now faced the consequences of his opportunism. Caesar's legions moved swiftly, decisively, crushing any hopes of rebellion. With each passing year, Caesar's hold on Gaul tightened. Cities were pacified, territories organized, roads improved. The provinces of Gaul, once a patchwork of tribes and chieftains, were becoming a seamless part of the Roman world. Yet Rome itself was a different matter. Every step of Caesar's progress brought him closer to the heart of Roman power, but also into the crosshairs of those who feared that power might. Pompey, a rival general, now stood as a formidable obstacle. Backed by the authority of the Senate and the legions loyal to Pompey, civil war became inevitable. The die was cast, and with it, the fate of Rome was set in motion. As Caesar's legions marched on Rome, he understood that this was more than just a military campaign. It was a confrontation between two visions of Rome, one championed by the traditionalists, the other by him, by Julius Caesar. In the Senate, senators plotted, exchanged glances, made plans. Caesar was aware of their machinations, their veiled threats, their open defiance. He had navigated the treacherous waters of Roman politics for too long to be caught off guard. The conspirators believed they had the support of the people, of the very institutions of Rome. They did not see the quiet strength that Caesar had been building. Not in the Senate, perhaps, but on the streets, in the hearts of the common folk, in the ranks of his veterans. In the Forum Magnum, the center of Roman life, men gathered, talked in hushed voices, exchanging news, spreading rumors. Some spoke of Caesar with admiration, of his achievements, his reforms. Others voiced their fears, their anger over the disruption to the old ways. The rubrics were alive with murmurs. Was Caesar becoming too powerful? Had he overstepped his bounds? Or was he simply acting in the best interest of Rome? Amidst the tension, there were glimmers of hope. Merchants went about their business, children played, lovers strolled hand in hand, oblivious to the shadows gathering on the horizon. Life went on as if the fate of Rome hung not in the balance. But beneath the surface, the currents were churning. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he took a step into the unknown, not just for himself, but for Rome. With each passing day, the chasm between Caesar and the Senate widened. The die was cast, and with it, the fates of Caesar and Rome intertwined in a tapestry of ambition, betrayal, and bloodshed. And then came the Ides of March, a day that would echo through the ages, not just as a date on the calendar, but as a turning point in Roman history. As Caesar entered the Senate that fateful day, he was greeted not with the reverence he commanded, but with daggers. Betrayed by a friend, struck down by a colleague, Caesar fell not in a battle, but in the heart of Roman power. The streets of Rome ran red, not with the blood of enemies, but with the blood of friends turned foes. The city that had cheered Caesar's triumphs now mourned his passing. In the aftermath, Rome reeled. The conspirators, believing they had saved the Republic, soon found themselves at odds with the people. The people who had cheered Caesar now saw him as a martyr. The Senate, once the seat of power, was seen as the source of the disorder. Rome was a tinderbox ready to burst. Octavian, Caesar's heir, navigated these turbulent waters with a combination of shrewdness and restraint. He played upon the emotions of the people, upon the fears and hopes of the Senate, gathering support, making alliances. While Rome grappled with grief and uncertainty, Octavian laid the foundations of his power, setting in motion the events that would lead to his triumph at Actium and the establishment of the empire. From the ashes of Caesar's assassination, Octavian rose to power. The seeds of Caesar's greatness had been sown, nurtured by his strategic brilliance, his administrative reforms, his understanding of the Roman psyche. Under Octavian, Rome entered a new era, one shaped by the legacy of Caesar, by the ideals he represented, by the victories he achieved. So as you stand there at the edge of the Roman encampment, the echoes of marching legionaries fade into the distance, replaced by the murmur of wind through the trees and the soft crackle of campfires. The tents, symbols of order and discipline, stand in stark contrast to the wild beauty of the Gallic wilderness. Here in this place where Caesar honed his skills, where he orchestrated his victories, there is a sense of anticipation, of history in the making. The story of Caesar, far from being confined to history books, unfolds all around you, in the very air you breathe, in the land that stretches to the horizon. Thank you for watching. The legions advanced through forests thick with mist, across rivers swollen with spring rains, over hills that rolled like waves beneath the sky. Each step was calculated, each fortification built with care. The rhythm of their lives continued, march, camp, drill, repeat, but now the stakes were higher. The enemy was unfamiliar, the land untamed. Caesar did not rely solely on force. He wrote letters, carefully worded, persuasive. He negotiated with tribal leaders, offering protection, trade, and Roman favor. Some accepted, others resisted, and when resistance came, it was met not with fury, but with precision. The legions formed ranks, shields locked, spears poised. The battles were swift, methodical. Lives were lost, quietly. The ground bore the weight of consequence. In winter, the army did not retreat. It built forts of timber and earth strongholds against the cold. The scent of wet wood and smoke filled the air. Inside, the soldiers trained, rested, prepared. Caesar wrote his commentaries calm and detailed, chronicling the campaign not as a tale of heroism, but as a record of strategy. And yet for all the planning, for all the legions, for all the might of Rome, there were things Caesar could not conquer. There were places where even his eagles could not fly, and some battles that he could not win. There were wounds that ran deeper than any sword cut, and scars that no amount of gold could heal. Vercingetorix watched the Romans depart. It had come in force, an invasion unlike any before. The Gallic chieftain wondered what manner of man led them. Was he young and hungry for glory? A seasoned general with eyes only for victory? Or something in between? Vercingetorix had seen many Romans, fierce warriors, sure, but their ambitions, as plain as the road that led to Rome. They wanted land, power, plunder. What drove them? Ambition, avarice, arrogance. Vercingetorix knew these things. He'd fought against Roman ambition on the frontier, where the Gauls had carved out a precarious peace. These Romans, though they were different, their leader's intentions, inscrutable. His methods, unsettling. Caesar had come to conquer, yes, but he'd also come to understand. Before the legions moved, he sent letters, missives that brooked no reply. Through his emissaries, he demanded submission, tribute, and recognition. Most tribes ignored him. Some scoffed, a few bargained. And so Caesar had marched on each in turn, subduing, taxing, recruiting. Wherever he went, his men stayed true to form, pillaging, burning, killing. Vercingetorix saw the pattern, understood the danger. If each tribe fell to Caesar one by one, then Rome would own the fertile fields of Gaul. His father had taught him that Rome could not be reasoned with, and its appetites could not be sated. And so, Vercingetorix gathered his warriors, urged them to unite. The Belovici, the Helvetii, the Arverni, the Aedui, all answered his call. Vercingetorix felt the thrum of anticipation in the great square at Bibracte. It vibrated through the earth, through his feet, up his legs, into his chest. Here was the heart of Gaul. Soon it would be Rome's prize, unless he could stop them. The battle began with cavalry. Vercingetorix watched from a hillock as Caesar's horsemen swept forward. A river of red and gold surged against the Gauls' blue war paint and wicker shields. Swords flashed, lances cracked. Vercingetorix saw his men give ground, fall back to the hidden strength of the forest. There he knew the real battle would be fought. And when the trees swallowed the last of the cavaliers, he rode forward, leaving the field to fate. The sun was a cold eye in the leaden sky as Caesar's legions deployed, a grim array of shields and swords and spears. Vercingetorix had gambled, committed his warriors deep into the woods. Now they lay in wait, hidden from view. As the Romans spread out, searching, clearing, hacking at branches, Vercingetorix gave the order. From the trees on either side of the Roman column, the Gauls poured forth. Spears found gaps in shields, swords sliced through chainmail, bodies crashed to the ground. Vercingetorix saw movement at the top of the hill, a flurry of flags and arms. Something was wrong. He rode hard, bursting through the trees to see what had happened. Caesar stood on a hillock, sword raised, directing his troops. Vercingetorix hesitated, caught between awe and dread. Then he turned his horse and rode back to the fray. This day would be a hard-won victory or a lasting defeat. Either way, Vercingetorix knew he could not flee. Not now, not ever. All around him, men died. He heard their screams, felt their life essence spill into the forest floor. When he raised his sword, he meant to avenge them, to honor them. To do anything less was to dishonor himself. The Gauls fought like wolves, all teeth and claws and hunger. But against disciplined wolves, wolves who fought as one, whose every action was measured, who neither wavered nor broke ranks, the Gauls could not prevail. Little by little, Vercingetorix saw his warriors fall back, saw their numbers dwindle. He knew he had pushed his luck too far. Retreat now was not just a necessity, it was a duty to his people. As long as he lived, he could lead them again. As long as he lived, he could strike back. Vercingetorix slipped away under cover of darkness, riding hard through the night. Behind him, he heard the drums of pursuit, smelled the smoke of their campfires. He dared not rest, dared not falter. And when dawn painted the sky with hues of rose and gold, Vercingetorix knew he had outrun his pursuers. Caesar's eagles had not touched him. Not this time.
Oh.
But the respite was short. From the forest's edge, Vercingetorix watched the Romans regroup, their standards snapping in the wind, their ranks reforming, their discipline unbroken. He knew the hunt would begin again. When Caesar received the report of his victory at Bibracte, he was surprised. The Gauls had nearly broken his legions, nearly. He reread the dispatches, tracing the elegant script with his finger. Vercingetorix had slipped through his net. Chieftain was a fox, a sly, elusive quarry. Caesar smiled. Foxes were clever, but they could not match the hound. He had Bibracte secured, the tribes scattered or subdued. Soon Gaul would be his. But first, he had a score to settle. The following summer, Caesar faced Vercingetorix in the siege of Alesia.
Oh, yes.
The Gauls had fortified the town with massive earthworks. But Caesar's siege engines thundered, battering rams smashed, catapults hurled, and slowly, surely, the defenses breached. Vercingetorix held out as long as he could, but the strain was evident. When he finally surrendered, he was a shadow of the warrior who danced with death in the forest. As Caesar entered Alesia, the victorious legions parted, forming a lane for Vercingetorix to walk. Through the gauntlet of sneering faces, eyes blazing with triumph, Vercingetorix walked to Caesar. The Gauls' best hope had come to this. Caesar extended his hand, a rare smile gracing his lips. Vercingetorix stared at it, then at Caesar's face. Slowly he reached out and took it. Vercingetorix was taken to Rome as Caesar's guest. At the gladiator games, he sat with senators and patricians. They pointed at the condemned as they entered the arena, their hands slick with sweat, their eyes wide with terror. Some died quickly, others not so. Vercingetorix, felt no triumph at their deaths, no satisfaction in their anguish.
Oh.
All he saw was himself.
Oh.
On the last day of the games, Caesar motioned for Vercingetorix to stand. The condemned man did as he was told, meeting his emperor's gaze. With a flick of his wrist, Caesar signaled for the executioner to approach. Vercingetorix closed his eyes, waiting for the fatal blow. Instead, he felt fingers at his shoulders, heard the crowd rise to its feet. Then he felt a sharp tug on his tunic, pulling him forward. He opened his eyes to see Caesar beckoning with his finger. Vercingetorix shook his head, unable to comprehend. Caesar stepped closer, his voice ringing with authority. He offered Vercingetorix one last chance to surrender, swear fealty, become a Roman client king. Beside him, the executioner lowered his sword. Vercingetorix looked from the blade to Caesar's face, then back to the sword. He drew a deep breath, accepting his fate. He let the sword fall. Caesar's army marches across northern Italy in 52 BC, leaving behind a conquered Gallia. But this is not the triumphant return many Romans might have expected. Instead of a massive show of force, only a small detachment of cavalry rides ahead. Pushing forward from the foothills of the Alps, before them lies the Po Valley, rich farmlands that feed much of northern Italy. To the north, towering mountains mark the boundary between Rome and the rest of the civilized world. As Caesar continues his advance, his men move swiftly across the flatlands, but they're not alone. Scouts ride ahead to watch the roads, searching for signs of movement, and a steady stream of deserters joins them. Some are Roman citizens pressed into service. Others are Gauls who fled their homeland when Caesar invaded. All bring news from the rear, where a vast army gathers under the standards of Brutus and Cassius. These men are Romans too, loyal to the ideals of the Republic and determined to end Caesar's ambitions once and for all. Caesar knows what's coming. The scouts reported the conspiracy brewing among the senators months ago, and he's taken steps to prepare. Now, as the threat grows closer, he sends messengers ahead to rally the local governors and legions stationed along the Po. Caesar's not worried. He's confident that his army will win any battle against these senators. But if he's so sure of victory, why does he send messengers at all? Why not just keep moving towards Rome? There must be more to this story than meets the eye. It's me. This is Caesar in Gaul. Today we're playing a game based on the events leading up to Caesar's assassination. Our goal is to work backwards from Caesar's death and see how his decisions led him to that fateful crossing of the Rubicon. Each episode will choose one of Caesar's actions and decide its outcome. Your choices will determine history, so pay attention to the questions I ask. Vote in the comments, and let's find out what role you play in Caesar's fate. In 49 BC, Caesar left northern Africa with orders to conquer the region known as Gaul. Over the next 4 years, he fought against numerous tribes, but his campaigns were never far from Roman politics. News arrived in dispatches that rivaled generals like Pompey and Crassus were gaining ground in Rome. While Caesar dealt with the threat of Helvetian War in the north, Rome itself grew more unstable. Caesar knew he needed to return home, but he wasn't willing to abandon his campaigns unfinished. So he devised a plan. He would find a way to finish his campaigns without actually finishing them. In other words, he would conquer Gaul without fighting a decisive battle. This was not a new strategy for Caesar. When he campaigned in Spain, he chased down Pompeius, but never in a pitched battle. Instead, he cut off supplies, lured his enemy into ambushes, or simply waited for his foe to make a mistake. Then, when the opportunity was right, he struck decisively and moved on. His goal was always the same: to put himself in the best position possible to seize power in Rome. And over the last 4 years, he has spent every moment advancing that goal. He has secured the northern borders of the Republic, won new lands for Rome, and defeated enemies both near and far. He even managed to assassinate his way into the hearts and minds of the Roman people. Wherever he went, Caesar built roads, founded colonies, and made friends. His deeds were written down and sent back to Rome by his devoted secretary Amontius. And with each dispatch, Caesar's reputation grew. Back in Rome, the Senate's propaganda couldn't touch him, because Caesar had a secret weapon: the truth. As Caesar prepares to leave Gaul, he needs to secure his final, quiet victory. If he can pull it off, he'll arrive in Italy as a conquering hero. If not, his reputation could suffer, and his plans for Rome might collapse. Caesar looks at the map before him. He knows there are two major cities left to subdue, Alessi and Gergovia. But those are two separate campaigns, two chances for an ambush. Caesar needs to finish the war quickly and decisively. He decides to go all in on Alesia, which means his army will arrive in Rome exhausted and demoralized. Or if things go well, they'll arrive rested and ready for anything. Either way, Caesar believes he can handle whatever the senators throw at him. But he knows better than to underestimate his enemies. That's why he's sending messengers ahead to rally troops along the Po in case he needs reinforcements. The man who conquers Gaul doesn't need to show off. He already knows his reputation precedes him. What should Caesar do first? Should he attack Alesia or besiege Gergovia? You decide in the comments below. While Caesar marches south from Gaul, his army moves swiftly, but that doesn't mean they're happy about it. After 4 years in the wilderness, these men are tired of the long marches, the endless fighting, and the quiet victories that never seem to end. Many have never been to Rome and don't know what to expect. Others remember how glorious the city looked during the Civil War. Now they just want to see it for themselves. But no matter how tired the soldiers might be, they push forward, following Caesar's orders to the letter. They know he trusts them, and they intend to keep that trust. It's not easy. Bandits prowl the countryside, and remnants of opposing armies harass their flanks. But Caesar's men hold firm, knowing that their general is counting on them. Now, deep in enemy territory, they need to stay sharp. But the threat from the east grows greater with each passing day. Ambitious warlords carve out their own kingdoms, seizing city after city and refusing to stop. Caesar knows that if he doesn't deal with them soon, he might be facing a full-blown civil war. But he also knows that his enemies would love nothing more than for him to rush back to Rome and save face. So Caesar plays his part, marching steadily south and giving the impression that he's eager to get the war over with. But he doesn't need to hurry. The truth is, he's in no danger. And if his enemies want a real fight, he'll be happy to oblige. But Caesar has another problem. His army has grown tired, and he can't afford to lose any more men. He needs to lift their spirits and fast. He knows just how to do it. As the army pushes south, they're joined by new recruits and veterans returning from campaigns across the Mediterranean. Some are volunteers, eager to prove themselves on the battlefield. Others are simply being transferred. But all of them need to be trained and organized. If Caesar wants his army to be at its best, he needs to spend time drilling his men. He can't afford to waste a single moment. But Caesar understands that training takes time, so he makes a decision. He'll train his men in the middle of enemy territory. His plan is simple. If his army faces an attack, they'll use their training exercises as cover. The soldiers will continue drilling as if nothing is happening. If an enemy force gets too close, they'll be ready to defend themselves. If Caesar pulls this off, his army will be battle-ready in no time. If not, the senators will have a real fight on their hands. What should Caesar do? Should he continue drilling his troops, or should he hide them in a nearby forest? You decide in the comments below. Meanwhile, back in Rome, Cassius and Brutus meet with the other conspirators. They know Caesar has crossed the Alps, and they know he's coming for them. They also know they can't beat his army in the open field, at least not yet, so they have only one option: delay Caesar's advance as long as possible. If they can just stall for time, they might have a chance to turn the tide in Rome. But how? Their army is outnumbered and outgunned. They can't risk a major engagement, at least not without a miracle. But there might be something else they can do. Perhaps a surprise attack or a daring raid. If they can just get inside Caesar's head, they might be able to change the course of the war. Cassius paces back and forth, trying to come up with a plan, but nothing seems to work. Just as he's about to give up, Brutus speaks up. He thinks he has an idea, a way to strike at the heart of Caesar's war effort, a way to delay him for weeks, maybe even months. But it's dangerous. If it fails, Caesar will be in Rome before they can say knife. Cassius turns to the others, gauging their reactions. If they agree, this plan could turn the tide. If not, they might as well pack up and head home. Cassius knows this is their best chance. So he asks them one simple question. Are you with me? What should the conspirators do? Should they launch a surprise attack on Caesar's camp? Or should they focus on defense? You decide in the comments below. Caesar's army marches on, unaware that they're being watched. Days pass, and still there's no sign of trouble. But Caesar isn't taking any chances. He knows that his enemies are just waiting for the right moment to strike. So he keeps his guard up. Meanwhile, his soldiers grow weary. They've been on the road for weeks, and they're starting to feel the strain. But Caesar doesn't care. He knows that they're in enemy territory, and he expects nothing less. And suddenly, out of nowhere, the attack comes. Caesar's men are caught off guard, and they quickly fall into chaos. But Caesar remains calm. He knows that his soldiers need him now more than ever, so he rallies them and leads them back into the fight. But as the battle rages, Caesar sees that his men are exhausted and demoralized. He knows that if they stay here any longer, they'll be in real trouble, so he makes a decision. He'll lead his men out of the forest and set up camp nearby. That way they can get some rest and be ready for whatever comes next. Caesar's men quickly set up camp and settle in for the night. But Caesar can't sleep. He knows that his enemies are out there watching him and waiting for him to make a mistake. Suddenly, Caesar hears a commotion outside the camp. He grabs his sword and runs to help. But when he gets outside, he sees that it's nothing more than a false alarm. Caesar's men have been tricked, but Caesar knows that it won't happen again. He's too close to Rome now, and the stakes are too high. What should Caesar do? Should he move his army to a safer location, or should he stay put and wait for his enemies to make the next move? You decide in the comments below. Meanwhile, in Rome, the conspirators celebrate their latest victory, but they know that it was just a small one. Caesar is still out there, and they know that he's coming for them. But that's okay. They're ready for him. In fact, they've been waiting for him. The streets of Rome are filled with the banners of the conspirators. Every passerby seems to be on their side, or at least they hope so. But the truth is, nobody really knows where this war will end. All anyone can do is hope for the best and prepare for the worst. As Cassius and Brutus walk through the city, they know that they're in for a long and bloody fight, but they're not afraid. They're willing to do whatever it takes to protect the Republic, even if it means sacrificing their own lives. Will Caesar reach Rome first, or will the conspirators eliminate him before he arrives? Find out next time on Caesar and Gaul. See you then. Buongiorno, cara mia. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. We've got another video of ancient Rome for you. This time we are going to imagine ourselves transported back to the glory days of Pompeii, before Vesuvius blew its top and buried this incredible city. So sit back and relax, and let's dive right into it. You wake up early? The sky outside your window is just beginning to lighten as the sun climbs over Vesuvius, bathing the room in an ethereal glow. You stretch and yawn, the feel of cool linen sheets against your skin. Your small house is simple but comfortable, whitewashed walls and a terracotta-tiled roof. The remnants of a fresco on one wall shows the faint outline of a goddess, perhaps Venus or Minerva. You rise and walk to the window. The view is unremarkable, a jumble of tiled roofs and the occasional glimpse of an atrium garden. But you know this street well. You have walked these streets since you were a little girl. You can see the baker's shop down the road. Even from here, you can smell the yeast and flour, the sweet aroma of baking bread drifting on the morning air. You turn away, pulling on a simple tunic. Today will be a busy day. As the first rays of sunlight touch your face, you know it's time to start your day. Wash in the small basin, the water from the public bathhouse brought here by the aqueduct. The water is tepid but refreshing nonetheless. You run a wooden comb through your dark hair, tying it back with a simple fillet. No jewels or adornment for you. You are a Roman woman. You dress quickly, slipping into your tunic and then tying on your stola. You don't bother with makeup, but you do add a splash of perfume, a habit you picked up after visiting the Greek colonies in southern Italy. You finish dressing and stand back, admiring your reflection. It's not bad. You leave the house, closing the door behind you. Your sandals slap softly against the flagstone pavement, the sound mingling with the gentle murmur of other voices. As you walk, you dodge around vendors and their wares. Baskets overflow with fruit, figs, dates, grapes, and pomegranates, while others sell fresh fish from that morning's catch. You pause to pick up a loaf of bread from the baker, exchanging greetings with him and his wife. Small talk flows easily between you, a comfortable familiarity, born from years of living in close quarters. You smile and continue on your way. Before long, you reach the forum. Still early. so most shops have yet to open, but the Forum is coming alive. Merchants are setting up their stalls, displaying bolts of fine linen, jewelry, and pottery. Slaves haggle over prices while their masters watch with amusement. The Forum is the heart of the city, a place where people come to buy and sell goods, but also to meet and be seen. Here, gossip is exchanged, deals are made, and friendships forged. You stop to chat with an old friend, exchanging news and catching up on each other's lives. Time passes pleasantly, and soon it's time to move on. The tribunal has begun its proceedings for the day. Its shadow hangs heavy over the Forum, a reminder that life in Roman society is not all sunshine and roses. You make your way to the Basilica, stopping to greet familiar faces along the way. You exchange greetings with a passing senator, his toga, a brilliant white, though you can tell from the creases that it's been worn many times. His eyes are kind, and he nods at you in acknowledgement. You return the gesture, knowing that in another century, you could be sitting in his place. You are a Roman, after all, and anything is possible. You push open the doors to the Basilica and step inside. Sunlight streams through the high windows, illuminating the rows of judges' seats and the crowded floor. Cases are heard, accusations are made, and justice is sought. You find yourself leaning forward, caught up in the drama unfolding before you. Suddenly, a commotion erupts at the back of the room. People are shouting, throwing their hands up in the air. You turn to look, and for a moment you catch sight of a gladiator, his armor glinting in the sunlight. You blink, and when you turn back, he's gone. Shaking your head, you turn back to the trial. Life in Pompeii is never dull. The morning sun beats down on your shoulders, and you decide to seek some shade. You duck into a nearby colonnade, its arches offering a welcome respite from the heat. You pass an elderly man reading a scroll, his brow furrowed in concentration. You recognize him as one of the city's scribes, a man who has spent his life recording important documents in legal proceedings. You wonder what secrets the scroll holds, what stories it could tell, if only it could speak. You smile to yourself and move on. You find a spot in the shade of a large building, its walls decorated with colorful frescoes. The scene depicts a mythical battle, complete with winged horses and fearsome monsters. You take a moment to admire the artwork, the skill of the artist evident in every brushstroke. You think about the people who commissioned the painting, wondering what their lives were like. Were they wealthy landowners or respected senators? You shake off the thought and get up. It's time to go home. When you get back, your house is empty. You lock the door behind you and head to the atrium. Sunlight streams through the opening in the roof, illuminating the mosaic on the floor. You sit down on a stone bench, taking a break from your chores. You close your eyes, listening to the sounds of the city. In the distance, you hear the hammering of a metalworker, the shouts of children playing, the distant crash of pottery. It's a comforting symphony, a reminder that you are part of something bigger than yourself. The heat of the day is relentless. Even the birds have sought refuge in the shade. You sigh, wishing for a cool breeze to rustle through the leaves of the fig tree in your atrium. But the air is still and heavy, the heat shimmering in the distance. You decide to escape the oppressive heat by heading to the public baths. The prospect of plunging into a pool of warm water is too tempting to resist. As you approach the baths, the sound of splashing water and laughter reaches your ears. You smile, knowing that you are in for a treat. The baths are more than just a place to clean. They're a social hub, a place where people come to relax and socialize. You greet friends as you make your way to the changing rooms, stripping off your sweaty clothes and tying them together to form a simple bundle. You step inside, the hot steam enveloping you like a warm embrace. You immerse yourself in the tepidarium, letting the heat soothe your tired muscles. The chatter of other bathers fills the air, their voices echoing off the marble walls. You close your eyes, letting the warmth envelop you like a soft blanket. When you finally emerge from the baths, you feel rejuvenated. Your skin is smooth, and your hair is shiny from the oil and vinegar treatment. You dress quickly and make your way back home, eager to start your evening routine. When you reach home, the afternoon shadows have lengthened. The sky is a brilliant blue, the heat of the day beginning to fade. You unlock the door and step inside. Your house is quiet, the day's heat making everyone slow and still. You go to the kitchen, starting to prepare dinner. A simple meal of bread, cheese, and olives will have to do. You don't mind? You are not one for extravagance. You find pleasure in the simple things in life. As the sun begins its descent, you step out onto your balcony. The view is breathtaking. The entire city is bathed in the golden light of twilight. You see the distant shimmer of the sea, and the distant rumble of Vesuvius seems strangely reassuring. You know, that the mountain is there, but for now, it is quiet. For now, you are safe. In this moment, you are at peace. You are a Roman woman in Pompeii, and this is your life. In 79 AD, the Roman city of Pompeii was destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Most of the world knows this story only through the famous destruction of Rome's great rival, Herculaneum. There are a thick layer of volcanic material preserved bodies, buildings and artifacts so well that when archaeologists arrived, they could read scrolls, see faces, and even pick out individual grains of wheat. It's easy to think of Pompeii as frozen in time, a snapshot of an ancient era taken in an instant. But that isn't how archaeologists experience the site. They don't see a day trip's worth of ruins. They see decades of work, dozens of seasons of excavation, and thousands of artifacts to preserve and study. And some things simply don't fit the narrative of a city destroyed in a day. It might be helpful then to imagine what everyday life was like in Pompeii before the eruption by focusing on one very important feature of the Pompeian landscape, a feature which we can't see today, the volcano itself. Because Pompeii wasn't destroyed in a day, it would be nice if we could see the city as it grew alongside Vesuvius over the course of several centuries. To understand how the locals saw the mountain, whether its presence shaped their daily lives. But alas, the archaeological record offers us little in the way of Mount Vesuvius. The volcano itself has been worn down by millennia of eruptions. The views from Pompeii aren't quite what they were in 79 AD. So to try and answer this question, I turn to art. And above it all, the mountain watches. Mount Vesuvius, its slopes green and serene, looms in the distance. It is not feared. It is simply their part of the landscape, familiar and still. But beneath the calm, there are signs. Subtle, quiet signs. The ground trembles, just slightly, enough to rattle a cup, to shift a tile. The people notice, but they do not worry. Earthquakes are common here. Life continues. Let's step back to the present day. Excavations at Pompeii began in 1748 and continued intermittently ever since. But it took some time for archaeologists to realize the scope of the disaster. After all, it wasn't exactly obvious that what they were excavating was once a Roman city. Over the years, as they removed debris and rebuilt the city, they found more and more evidence of earthquakes. One major event struck in 62 AD, causing significant damage, though some locals stayed put and rebuilt. There was another smaller eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD, but it wasn't until October of that year that the catastrophic eruption occurred. This means that the city experienced 3 earthquakes in less than 2 decades, along with at least one smaller eruption of the volcano. Yet despite the earthquakes, residents didn't seem too concerned about Vesuvius. In fact, excavations have revealed no earthquake-related structures like those built after the earthquakes in Greece or central Italy. But how did the people of Pompeii live with the ever-present danger? Did they fear the mountain? Was it always on their minds? Or did they take its presence in stride? The answer, it turns out, is yes, kind of. You see, there are 2 ways to interact with a volcano: practical action and aesthetic appreciation. Let's start with the aesthetic. What did Mount Vesuvius look like? Like most volcanoes, it had a conical shape and a crater at the top. The sides of the volcano were slopey and covered in vegetation, hence why we called it green in our story. Vesuvius wasn't much of a giant, standing just 1,281 feet tall, or 390 meters. Today, of course, the mountain is completely bare. But in the ancient world, wooded mountainsides were fairly common, especially in warmer climates. Indeed, we know that Vesuvius had trees on it in part because Pliny the Younger described the region as being rich in wood. Not only that, but archaeological evidence suggests that the people of Pompeii collected firewood from the mountainside. So how did the view change over time? Well, unfortunately, we'll have to use our imaginations again because the artwork we have doesn't depict Vesuvius without trees. We know that in 79 AD, the slopes were covered in foliage. But were the trees gone by the 1st century? It's possible. Some scholars say that the heavy soil and loose volcanic ash that make up Vesuvius were unsuitable for growing large trees. If that's true, then it's likely that shrubs and bushes were the main vegetation on the slopes. Either way, Vesuvius was a beautiful part of the landscape, worthy of inclusion in paintings and poetry. But beauty is not enough to capture the spirit of a place. We also need to account for the people who lived there, including the Roman emperor, who famously tried to fell the tree that shaded his villa. That's right. Nero, the infamous mad emperor, is said to have planted a fire at the foot of Vesuvius and tried to burn away the forest himself. Now, it's possible that he was trying to clear land for a villa. But the story is often interpreted as an act of pointless destruction, similar to his notorious destruction of the Roman ghetto. Whatever the motivation, Nero failed. Vesuvius kept its woods and its peace. So when the people of Pompeii looked out at the mountain, they would have seen something pleasing to the eye, something that made their city special. The presence of the volcano would have been a part of their identity, much like the sea or a river in another city. You might compare it to living near a lake or a ski resort. It's just there, it's part of your environment, shapes the local culture. It's pretty, and it's convenient. So far, so idyllic. Now let's talk about the practical side of living near a volcano. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it sent a pyroclastic surge racing down its slopes, killing everyone in its path. Such surges are devastating and fast, but they're not the whole story of volcanic eruptions. Volcanoes emit gases, they spew ash, and they shower nearby areas in volcanic debris. This material accumulates over time, creating fertile soil for farming and building material for construction. People often settle near volcanoes precisely because of these benefits. Living near Vesuvius may have been dangerous, but it was also convenient. Farmers in Pompeii used the light, fluffy pumice created by earlier eruptions to improve drainage in their fields. Brickmakers used the volcanic ash to create mortar, and builders used blocks of pumice and volcanic rock to construct foundations and walls. Plus, the fertile soil allowed farmers to grow food on the slopes of the mountain, and the heat from the volcano may have even warmed houses in the winter. So the people of Pompeii probably didn't spend their days worrying about a catastrophic eruption. Instead, they probably spent them working in the fields, collecting firewood and walking through the streets. Just because they didn't fear the volcano doesn't mean they were foolish. After all, they weren't living in the shadow of a supervolcano like Yellowstone. The danger was real, but the risk was acceptable. Mount Vesuvius, a source of both beauty and convenience, loomed over Pompeii for centuries. Though the people of Pompeii knew that the mountain was capable of terrible destruction, they probably didn't spend their days worrying about an eruption. For them, the volcano was just a part of their environment, much like the river Sarno or the rolling hills of the Italian countryside. But that's just one interpretation of how the people of Pompeii saw their volcano. In fact, we have no way of knowing for sure. All we can do is examine the evidence and draw our own conclusions. Fortunately, there are many more layers of evidence waiting to be uncovered, many more artifacts, frescoes, and stories to be rediscovered. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll find a Pompeian travel guide to local attractions, complete with tips on the best places to hike and sightsee on Vesuvius. In the meantime, we'll have to make do with what we have. Thanks for watching this episode. Thanks to my patrons for helping to support it. Y'all are the best. Y'all get to watch this unedited version, which means there's no sponsor, no ads, nothing. This is the only place where I share extra perks like bloopers, deleted scenes, and early access to merch. If you want to learn more about how you can help us make videos like this, you can click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. The warnings grew more frequent. Birds flew strangely. Wells dried. The air grew thick, heavy. But the people stayed. They trusted the rhythm of their lives, trusted the mountain's silence. It had been silent for 600 years. Then the silence broke. But we do not linger there. We do not dwell on the eruption, the ash, the end. Instead, we hold on to the quiet moments before, the sound of footsteps on stone, the scent of figs in the market, the warmth of the sun on a tiled roof. In the ruins of Pompeii, archaeologists have found the imprint of a sandal in the ash, perfect plaster cast of a shoe from a bustling city, a city that once looked like this. Here, on the west side of the Bay of Naples, overlooking the Mediterranean, stood a city of staggering beauty. Here, 11,000 people lived and worked and played and loved and died. Their city was called Pompeii. It was a Roman city, a provincial capital, a place where Italy ended and the rest of the world began. Their lives were ordinary. They went about their business. They made love. They made war. They made money. They gossiped over garden walls. They drank wine and ate figs and roasted meat. It was an ordinary place. And in the ordinary, there was beauty. And so when Vesuvius erupted, it wasn't just a volcano that was lost. It was beauty that was lost. So we look elsewhere. We find ourselves transported 300 miles away, across the bay, across the water, across the world really, to Rome. Here, the Tiber River winds its way through 7 hills, past monuments and temples and tombs, towards the sea. This is Rome. It is the center of the world. It is the home of emperors and senators and generals, of merchants and prostitutes and poets. It is a place of grandeur and corruption, of glory and filth, of ambition and despair. The good life is lived here. The great life is lived here. Life is imagined by the Romans, life according to Rome. In the grand halls of a patrician house, marble columns reach towards a vaulted ceiling. Sunlight streams through a window onto a frescoed wall. Colors are still vibrant after 2 millennia. In the distance, the murmur of the city. Up close, the scrape of a tool on marble. Slaves work, servants move. A patrician relaxes on a chaise longue. He is well fed. His skin is oiled. His hair is curled. Slaves bathe him. Servants fan him. He is ready for the day. He will meet his friends in the forum. They will discuss politics and philosophy and poetry. They will argue about the best way to acquire wealth and power. They will plot and scheme. They will make deals. They will betray each other. After the forum, they might visit a temple, pray to the gods, offer a sacrifice, buy a lottery ticket. Then they will walk through the streets, perhaps stopping at a bar to drink wine or a brothel, to meet a mistress, or a gladiator school, to watch boys fight with wooden swords. At night they will dine in taverns or restaurants or private homes. The menu is endless. Oysters, flamingo, roast goose, fig, wine, honey. After dinner, they might attend a play or a chariot race or a mock battle or an execution. We watch them all from above, see them as if from the gods, see the Forum, the Colosseum, the Palatine Hill, the whole of Rome spread out beneath us like a map, like a model, like a painting. We see all of this because we are in the gardens of Sallust. With us are the Emperor Hadrian and his Empress Sabina. Behind us is a marble fountain. Before us, the entire empire. To the east, the sun rises over the Hellespont. To the west, it sets over the Atlantic. All the world's a stage and Rome is its capital, the center of the world, the heart of the empire. Here, emperors live and die. Here, empires rise and fall. Here, the past becomes the present, and the future becomes the past. And in the middle of it all, amidst the grandeur and the filth, the glory and the despair, the ambition and the tragedy, the ordinary life goes on. A slave prepares breakfast. A merchant counts his money. A prostitute bathes. An old man walks his dog. A mother rocks her child. A boy chases a ball. A girl skips rope. On the Palatine Hill, under the shadow of the Colosseum, along the Appian Way, throughout the eternal city, the ordinary life goes on. It is a beautiful life. It is a terrible life. It is the life of Rome. It is the life of the world. It is our life. We see it now, as if for the first time, the light of discovery, the thrill of recognition, the shock of the new. But this is nothing new. This is our story. Our story and that of our world. Welcome to the House of Lords, one of many magnificent mansions nestled along the Tiber River in ancient Rome. It is midday. And as you step through the atrium, you catch your breath. Sunlight streams through the open roof, painting mosaic tiles in gold. Birds chirp from their perches, and the distant murmur of the city fades to a whisper behind the high walls of this private sanctuary. Your host, Marcus Valerius, Massala, greets you with a warm smile and a polite inquiry about your journey. After a quick refresher, he leads you on a tour of his home, pausing to explain each room's purpose and regale you with anecdotes of its construction. But there's more to Massala than meets the eye. While outwardly charming, he harbors secret anxieties about the stability of the empire. As you explore his house, try to guess what troubles weigh so heavily upon his mind. You pass through the atrium, the heart of the home, decorated with statues of ancestors and busts of emperors. Here, servants prepare to serve lunch, arranging cushions and tables in anticipation of your arrival. On the far side of the courtyard, a fountain cascades into a pool, its gentle sound masking the rustle of parchment in the library. Peeking through an archway, you see scrolls stacked high on shelves, some bearing wax tablets containing important messages. Books and writing materials are scattered on a table beside a comfortable chair, suggesting a space for quiet study or contemplation. A marble bust of Plato sits nearby, a silent observer of the intellectual pursuits carried out within these four walls. But it's time to wash away the dust of the road in the frigidarium, the coldest of the baths. Stepping into the basin, you feel the shock of icy water, invigorating, bracing. The temperature is around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, intended to stimulate circulation and invigorate the body. It's a stark contrast to the heat that awaits you in the next chamber, the tepidarium, where lukewarm water envelops you, easing your muscles and preparing you for the final stage, the caldarium. As you sink into the steaming cauldron of the hottest bath, the cares of the day melt away. The heat relaxes your limbs, soothing tired muscles. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, letting the warmth envelop you. When you open them again, you find yourself face to face with a bronze statue of Apollo, god of music, poetry, and light. The flickering flames of the brazier beside you cast dancing shadows. On the marble walls adorned with frescoes of idyllic landscapes and playful cupids. And then you hear it, a discordant note that shatters the tranquility. A servant rushes in, his face etched with worry, and delivers a message to the master. Masala listens intently, his brow furrowed, then thanks the man and ushers him out. Turning back to you, he offers a sheepish apology, explaining that his wife Livia has fallen ill and he must leave immediately to be by her side. Although disappointed, you understand the importance of family and offer your well wishes. As Masala hurriedly departs, you notice a fleeting look of fear cross his face, before it's replaced by his usual composure. Something troubles him, but he'll share it only if he trusts you enough. Your own exploration of the house continues. From the baths, you pass through a colonnaded passage to the tablinum, a rectangular structure housing Messala's administrative offices. Here scrolls and tablets lay on desks alongside quills and ink pots, indicating a place of both business and creativity. You imagine Masala sitting at the central table dictating letters while slaves copy them down, slipping one to a freedman who will deliver it by the end of the day. Other rooms line the passage, including a dining room complete with a triclinium, a couch tilted at a 45-degree angle for reclining during meals. Scenes from Greek mythology painted on the walls add a touch of whimsy to the room, contrasting with the more serious discussions held in the adjoining atrium. In this large courtyard, surrounded by columns and adorned with statues, you can picture patrons engaging in lively conversations while enjoying the shade cast by their size. Frescoes on the walls depict idyllic landscapes and scenes from Roman history, adding a touch of beauty to this already captivating space. Continuing your tour, you enter a long, narrow room with a raised platform at one end. This is the palestra, a space for exercise and athletic training, equipped with mats and weights. It's here that Masala keeps himself fit, not just for the sake of physical health, but also to maintain his dignity and strength in the eyes of others. The house boasts additional bedrooms, each designed for maximum comfort, featuring large windows, ornate balconies, and views overlooking the garden. In one of these rooms, a young woman named Phyllis is having her portrait painted by a slave. She reclines on a couch while the artist carefully applies layers of color, capturing her likeness on canvas. The sight reminds you of the wealth and privilege enjoyed by those living in Rome, where even domestic slaves can pursue artistic endeavors. Stepping outside, you find yourself in the peristyle, colonnaded walkway that encircles a courtyard filled with trees, flowers, and statues. It's a peaceful spot, perfect for taking a break from the noise and bustle of the city. Birds sing from their perches atop the columns, adding to the tranquility of the scene. You relax on a nearby bench, feeling the soft cushions beneath you as you listen to the gentle murmur of water cascading from a nearby fountain. The air is filled with the sweet fragrance of blooming flowers and the sound of children playing in the distance. As you continue exploring, you come across an artificial grotto adorned with stalactites and stalagmites, a testament to the ingenuity of Roman architecture. Side, a fountain adds to the illusion, creating a serene atmosphere that invites contemplation and relaxation. Further along, you discover a shrine dedicated to Lares, the household gods of the Romans, showcasing the deep importance of religion in their daily lives. Your final destination is the greenhouse, a marvel of Roman engineering. Within its glass enclosure, exotic plants from far-off lands thrive. Offering a glimpse of the natural world beyond Rome, the air is warm and humid, filled with the sweet scent of blossoms. Birds fly freely within the structure, occasionally perching on trellises or fluttering around visitors. The greenhouse symbolizes the abundance and luxury that mark life in the Roman Empire. Upon your return to the atrium, you find a small group of men engaged in animated conversation. One of them, Gaius Caesar, catches your eye with his striking appearance and confident demeanor. He is dressed in fine clothes, and his jewelry and perfume speak to his wealth and status. His companion, Cassius Dio, is less flamboyant, but no less intriguing. An older man with a sharp gaze and a neatly trimmed beard, he exudes an air of authority and intelligence. After exchanging pleasantries and inquiring about your travels, the men delve into a discussion about the recent earthquake that shook the city. Gaius expresses his belief that such natural disasters are signs of divine displeasure, while Cassius Dio counters with a more rational explanation, attributing them to the shifting of the Earth's crust. Their debate touches upon a broader philosophical divide between fatalism and free will, raising questions about the nature of humanity's existence and its relationship to the cosmos. As the conversation continues, Cassius Dio shares his concerns about the growing unrest among the populace, linking it to a decline in traditional Roman values and the spread of foreign customs. Gaius, however, remains optimistic, asserting that these challenges are merely temporary setbacks in the eternal story of Rome and its resilience. With the discussion concluded, Gaius excuses himself, leaving Cassius Dio to lead you on a tour of the Palatine Hill, one of Rome's 7 hills. He points out the impressive ruins of ancient palaces and forums, sharing anecdotes about the legendary figures who once walked these streets. Despite the passage of time, the grandeur of imperial Rome is evident in the remaining structures, whispering tales of a glorious past. As the sun begins its descent, you find yourself at the foot of the Palatine Hill, gazing up at the majestic view of Rome's skyline. The Forum, the Colosseum, and the Pantheon stand proudly against the backdrop of the setting sun, silhouetting themselves against the vibrant hues of twilight. Cassius Dio, ever the scholar, takes this moment to expound on the historical significance of these landmarks. Weaving tales of ancient battles, triumphs, and the ebb and flow of imperial power, the tour ends with a visit to the nearby Circus Maximus, Rome's chariot racing stadium. Now in ruins, its stands and tracks bear silent witness to the roar of the crowds and the thunder of racing chariots that once filled this space. Cassius Dio paints a vivid picture of the spectacle that unfolded here, describing the cheers and jeers of the spectators, the dust kicked up by the speeding horses and the clash of chariots as they raced neck and neck toward the finish line. As darkness falls, the group makes its way to a nearby tavern, the boisterous laughter of patrons spilling out onto the street. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and inviting, filled with the aroma of roasted meats and spiced wine. The tavern's rough-hewn tables and benches are crowded with locals and travelers, all eager to share in the camaraderie and revelry. Amidst the lively chatter, you find yourself captivated by the stories of 2 men at a corner table, their animated discussion drawing your attention. The first man, a seasoned soldier, recounts tales of his campaigns across the empire, describing the thrill of battle and the challenges of maintaining order in distant provinces. His companion, a young poet, listens intently, occasionally interjecting with a witty remark or a thoughtful question. The conversation turns to the growing unrest among the Gauls, prompting the soldier to share his first-hand experience with the tribe's fierce resistance to Roman rule. The poet, however, challenges the notion of the Gauls as uncivilized barbarians, arguing that their dissatisfaction stems from the injustices and cultural clashes imposed by the Romans. This sparks a broader discussion about the nature of conquest and the consequences of cultural imperialism, raising questions about the true cost of the empire's vast territories. As the night deepens, the tavern's owner, a jovial man with a booming laugh, joins the conversation, offering his own perspective on the challenges facing Rome. He speaks of the declining economy, influx of foreign goods, and the changing tastes of the elite, all of which threaten the livelihoods of ordinary citizens like himself. With the tavern's patrons growing restless and ready to depart, the conversation shifts to the topic of entertainment with the soldier, describing the gladiatorial combats he witnessed in the Colosseum, and the poet reciting his latest work, An Ode to the Goddess Minerva. The evening concludes with a toast to the enduring spirit of Rome, its ability to adapt and survive despite the trials and tribulations that lie ahead. As you say your goodbyes and make your way home, the weight of the day's events settles upon you. The grandeur of Roman life. The philosophical debates and the tavern's lively discussions have left an indelible impression. With the bustling streets of Rome fading into the darkness, you find yourself contemplating the challenges and triumphs that await the city and its inhabitants in the years to come. This is the last scene of our story. You find yourself lying here in the ashes of Pompeii. Perhaps you have been deposited here by a passing slave whose master has been taken by a fever, or you are one of the unfortunates who were turned to stone by the volcanic eruption that ended this city's life. Either way, you are alone. The bustling streets of Pompeii are gone, swallowed by earth and fire. The forum, once filled with merchants hawking their wares and politicians arguing politics, is a hollow shell. The temple of Jupiter, which once held court over the city, now lies broken before the mountain, the source of both bounty and ruin. You look up at Vesuvius, brooding against the bruised sky, the embodiment of nature's power. Its peak, usually adorned with the playful white plume of smoke, now pours out ash and cinders, a dark wound on the landscape. It seems so close, yet you know there's no escaping its wrath. Here in the shadow of the mountain, all is silent. No birds sing, no leaves stir. There is only the soft sigh of cooling lava and the rasp of wind through shattered window frames. The air is thick with the smell of burnt flesh, houses, hopes. Yet amid the destruction, you see small details frozen in time. A copper cauldron hanging over a dying fire. A dog's collar lying by a crumbling fountain. The chipped rim of a woman's perfume bottle. A half-written letter on a desk. A gladiator's sandal resting on a stone bench, as if waiting for its owner to return. This silence, this stark tableau, is what's left of the world you once knew. And now, as the final embers of our story fade into the soft hush of night, we pause to reflect. Your journey through the heart of the Roman world is at an end. You have walked among emperors and gladiators, witnessed triumphs and tragedies, breathed the air of taverns and brothels, felt the pulse of a city that never slept. But as you lie here in the ashes of Pompeii, you are reminded that the Roman world was not just a world of conquest and Colosseum, that it was also made of quieter things. The legionary rising each day to the rhythm of the march, the general plotting his course with silent precision, the townsfolk of Pompeii living unaware beneath the shadow of a mountain, the elite wrapped in ritual and repose guiding the empire with slow deliberation. Each life, each moment carried its own weight, not in shouts, but in footsteps, not in spectacle, but in repetition, the scent of leather and wood smoke, the feel of stone beneath the feet, the soft murmur of Latin in the bathhouse. These were the textures of a world that endured. You recall the stories you heard around campfires and dinner tables, tales of heroes and monsters, gods and men. You remember the games in the forum, the cheers of the crowd, the clash of swords, the roar of the lion. You remember the taste of garum on your tongue, the sting of wine on your throat, the sweetness of figs plucked fresh from the tree. You remember the feel of sun-warmed marble beneath your fingers, the rough bark of an olive tree, the silky touch of wool on bare arms. You remember the sounds of street vendors and bartering merchants, the clatter of chariot wheels, the lilting music of a flute, the raspy call of a ballad singer, the murmur of lovers in the shadows. You remember the sights of the Roman world, the proud eagle standard held high, the arching vaults of a basilica, the fiery red cloak of a senator, the placid face of a marble Venus, the silver glint of a treasure hoard, the deep-set eyes of a slave. And then there's Vespius. Remember it as a constant presence, a slumbering giant on the horizon. It had always been there, a steadfast fixture in the lives of Pompeii's citizens. They farmed its slopes, built their homes in its shadow, and worshipped it as a god. Now it towers over you, a smoldering titan wreathed in smoke, having awakened to unleash its fury. You think of the people you've known, the faces that have flickered like candle flames in the darkness of your memory. You remember the gladiator, scarred and stoic, his eyes holding the ghosts of 1,000 battles? You remember the emperor, resplendent in purple, his every gesture echoing with power. You remember the merchant, shrewd and quick-witted, his hands stained with the dust of 1,000 roads. You remember the freed woman, graceful and wise, her laughter echoing with the chimes of freedom. You remember the old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes twinkling with stories untold. You remember them all, the fleeting smiles, the shared glances, the unspoken bonds that wove together the tapestry of your existence. As the night deepens, you are enveloped by the stillness of a world that has ceased to be. The grand avenues of Rome, the bustling squares of Capua, the sun-drenched villas along the coast, all lie silent now. The laughter and chatter that once reverberated through these places have been stilled. The vibrant colors that painted the streets and the faces that graced them have faded into shades of gray. The pulse of the empire, once so strong and vibrant, has slowed to a halt. And in this moment of quiet contemplation, you are overcome with a profound realization. You understand now that empires, like the flickers of candle flames, burn bright but fade away, leaving behind only the shadows of their former glory. The might of Rome, so vast and invincible in its prime, is now a memory overshadowed by the slumbering Vesuvius. The legions that once marched to the sound of trumpets and the cheers of crowds are now scattered to the winds, their ranks broken by the relentless march of time. The senators who once debated in the hallowed halls of the Forum, shaping the course of the empire, are now nothing but dust, their voices forever silenced. The emperors who commanded the loyalty of a world are now interred in their marble tombs, their legacies reduced to the crumbling stones that bear their names. In the silence of this night, you ponder the futility of empires, the inevitability of decline. The great Vesuvius, once a symbol of bounty and life for the people of Pompeii, is turned against them, reminding you that fortune and misfortune are often intertwined. Nature, in its untamed fury, has leveled all distinctions, all titles, all achievements. Here in the heart of the fallen city, there is no trace of social standing, no evidence of wealth or power. All that remains are the hushed whispers of the wind and the mournful lament of a city lost. But as the night deepens and the shadows lengthen, you also find a strange solace in the ruins of Pompeii. For in the midst of this desolation, you discover a profound truth. Amidst the decay and destruction, life itself persists. The seeds that lay buried beneath the ash will one day sprout, bringing forth new life. The river that flows from Vesuvius, though tainted by fire and brimstone, will nourish the land. The very air you breathe carries the promise of renewal. Even in the heart of a dead city, the cycle of life goes on. And so, as you lie here, traveler of time, beneath the watchful gaze of Vesuvius, you find a measure of peace in the ruins of Pompeii. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift. The past has spoken, not in thunder, but in whispers. Sleep well. The march is over. The fire is low. The night is yours.